How's it going, everybody? My name is Justin Purewall. My partner is Rupen Shah, and today we are presenting a policy map review on the relationship between smoking cigarettes and rates of lung and bronchus cancer. So just to do a brief introduction, as we all know by now, epidemiology is a study of the patterns of health and disease. It looks at the number of incidences, how a particular disease is distributed, and possible ways of controlling many factors that relate to health. So one way of doing this is through geographical mapping. By mapping out a disease or health factor, you can identify distribution and variation. This can help researchers to establish causal links between various factors related to health. In our particular research report, we used PolicyMap to highlight a cause and effect relationship between the two health-related variables that I specified before in two states, those being Florida and New York. To be more specific about the variables, we examined the percentage of adults reporting to have ever smoked cigarettes and the rates of lung and bronchus cancer, that being incidence per 100,000. So it's well known and documented that smoking cigarettes leads to negative health effects. Since 1964, when the Surgeon General had officially established the link between smoking cigarettes and cancer, further research has only solidified this link. Upon looking at the data maps presented in the next slide, one should expect that those areas in which a higher percentage of adults have reported to have ever smoked would also have greater incidences of lung and bronchus cancer, which is actually reflected in this overview map of the United States. We'll dive more into what the colors mean in a second. But before getting any further into our discussion, I just want to briefly discuss the cross-sectionality of the data that we've researched. This is important to take note of because we are observing multiple variables that reflect a single point in time. Because of this, there are limitations to what we can interpret. Since we're not observing what's happened prior to or after this point in time, it's difficult to distinguish the extent of the relationships between the variables that we're researching. This being said, there's still a notable correlation between the two main variables we observed. First, we're going to take a look at Florida. Then we'll proceed to New York State. The first map shows us the percentage of the population reporting to have ever smoked within each county. The darker regions indicate areas in which a larger proportion of the county's population is reported to have smoked. The same applies to the second map, however, this time the darker regions represent counties in which greater incidences of lung and bronchus cancer are occurring. Although we can see that the data varies from county to county, we can also see that certain dark and light regions between the two maps coincide with one another. This is most notable in the lower regions of Florida, if you look by the Miami area, where there are both low rates of people reporting to have smoked and low incidences of cancer. We also see this in the northern region, if you look by the Jacksonville area, where there are both high rates of reported smokers and higher incidences of cancer. The correlation is weak, however. The coefficient correlation in this case happens to be only 0.34, but it's also worth noting that the average rate of lung and bronchus cancer in the state is 74.9 out of per 100,000, with 49.56% of the population reporting to have ever smoked. I'll get into why this is important shortly. So for the next section, we decided to compare Florida to the state of New York. New York is relatively distant from Florida geographically as well as sociopolitically. For this reason, we thought a comparison of the two states could help us to generalize our findings. As we expected, when looking over New York State, we see very similar scenario to the one we saw in Florida. Certain dark and light regions on the map coincide with one another. If we look to the north towards the St. Lawrence and Jefferson region, we find both high numbers of people reporting to have ever smoked and high incidences of cancer. Similarly, we see in the south by the Westchester, Orange, and Suffolk County region, We see lower numbers of people reporting to have smoked and likewise fewer incidents of cancer. Upon further analysis of the separate counties in the state of New York, we found there to be a stronger positive correlation between the percentage of adults reporting to have smoked and the incidences of cancer. In this case, the coefficient correlation was 0.61. So this does help us to reinforce the generalizability of our expectations. And just to go back to the averages I discussed in the state of Florida, it's notable that New York State has a slightly lower average than Florida of people reporting to have ever smoked. New York's average is 47.47, while Florida's, as I said before, was 49.46. We suspect that this could be due to the increased cigarette tax in New York, which I will discuss in a moment. So we've established the link between smokers and rates of cancer in Florida and New York. However, this doesn't explain the higher rates of smoking in Florida as opposed to New York. So another variable that is worth considering is level of educational attainment and how this relates to the number of smokers in a given location. We decided to look into educational attainment because prior research has indicated that the higher a person's level of educational attainment, the less likely he or she will become a smoker. So this is a very probable causal variable to the higher rates of smoking. So we decided in this case to compare two counties in the state of Florida, Orange County and Dixie County. To simplify the process of establishing level of educational attainment, we decided to analyze the percentage of people in each county with at least a bachelor's degree from college to see how this would relate to the number of reported smokers. The data agrees with prior research on the topic. In the county of Dixie, only 6.07% of the population had achieved the bachelor's degree from college, while 54.13% of the population reported to have ever smoked. In Orange County, on the other hand, 17.12% of the population had achieved a bachelor's degree, while 41.27% of the population reported to have smoked. So the comparison is distinct. The county in which less people achieved a bachelor's degree had a higher number of reported smokers. And this comparison was seen in other counties as well, such as Holmes, which has fewer residents with bachelor's degrees than Miami-Dade County. And it also has higher rates of smoking as well.
State of New York, we consider two counties. On the top is Westchester and the bottom is Delaware. The pink maps on the left, those represent the smoking adults, and the green maps on the right represent their education level. As you can see, those light pink patches on the top left map, those are the areas with least amount of smokers, and their corresponding areas on the right, which shows dark green patches, those are the cities with highly educated people. Coming down to Delaware, you can see those dark red and maroon patches are indicative of heavy smokers, and the corresponding white patches are the areas with people without bachelor's degree. Um, Thus, we believe that these maps are indicative that there is a direct correlation to smoking adults and their education level. So here we have an graphical presentation of educational attainment versus the percentage of smokers with a breakdown of specified counties. The blue bars represent the percentage of smokers, and the yellow bar represent the people with bachelor's degree. So you can see on the left where the counties with 40 to 41% of smoking adults have reported 22 to 23% of people with bachelor's degree, whereas counties on the right, which represent more than 50% of smoking adults, have reported only 11 to 13% of people with bachelor's degree. So again, the data suggests that with every 1% increase in the educational level, there would be a 1.5% decrease in the percentage of smoking adults. So coming to conclusion, we believe that the percentage of smokers are more in the state of Florida as compared to New York, And one of the reason is because Florida is only $34 tax per pack of cigarette as opposed to $4.35 in state of New York. We would conclude this presentation by making two suggestions. First is to increase excise tax on cigarette pack, which would decrease the smoking adults, and the money generated from it can be used for tobacco cessation services and for treating cancer. And the second suggestion would be insisting for more government funding in areas where the education level are below 20%. Thank you so much guys for watching this video. Open to questions and suggestions.